All right, hello everybody. Welcome to this afternoon session. I'm going to be talking to you about the Google Hangouts Chat product that we just launched several weeks ago. I'm going to give you developers an overview of the platform that we have, the API, and then I'll talk a little bit about our integration with Salesforce. And if we don't have enough time for questions afterwards, feel free to scan the barcode or go to the short link, and that goes to a Google Doc that you can add your questions, and I'll be able to answer those, or at least try to find answers to your questions after I get back home. All right, so my name is Wesley Chun. I'm a developer advocate for G Suite. Let's see if I can get this to work. So my job is to make developers everywhere, like you guys, to be successful on using all of our G Suite and Google Developer Tools and APIs. And when I'm not on the road, I host the G Suite Dev Show on YouTube, which actually shows developers how to use our APIs. I also am a frequent contributor to the blog as well as the Twitter account. My background is I've been a software engineer for over 20 years. I was one of the original engineers that built Yahoo Mail over 20 some odd years ago. And I have about 5 Python books or so, if you guys know the Python language. And outside of work, I like to do teaching and training. And by the way, anytime you see a blue box like this, it means that it just points out to some videos that I have. So since this product is new, I'm still working on the first video for Hangouts Chat, so expect to see one within a couple of weeks. All right. So about this talk, we're going to talk about G Suite Developer Tools, but mostly focus on Hangouts Chat. If you came to my earlier talk, I gave a more general overview of the different developer tools we have. And I'll actually talk about the different environments that you can write chatbots with, and we'll get into that as we get towards the end of the talk. All right, so first of all, let's talk a little about Hangouts itself. So Hangouts is our, our current chat system. Many people use it in the workplace to talk to colleagues, to get things done. And one of the things we wanted to do was significantly improve this because we wanted it to be more collaborative, to work better with teams. So that's why Hangouts Chat is the next generation of messaging that we have. All right. Okay, and it works great on the web as well as on mobile. So it's an intelligent messaging app. All right, where's the intelligent part come from? All right, so the intelligent part is that we are providing developers the ability to actually write bot automations for chat. So in the previous version of Hangouts, you can just talk to people. You can start a group chat with a bunch of people, but that's all you could do. You couldn't create rooms. You couldn't have bots. Okay, so that's why this is the next generation. So one is that you can have a conversation with a third-party bot in either a direct message or a room. Okay, and furthermore, within the chat, even if you are talking to a bot or not or a human, in any case, instead of just getting plain text back, we also support interactive cards, which means you can have stuff like, checkboxes, you can have images, you can have buttons, and things that you can click. And the cards can be interactive, meaning that users can cause actions to get the data in the cards to get updated, so the UI will change. All right, so that's what we mean by an interactive card. So what can bots be useful for? Well, bots help you do more from other apps that are not part of this environment. All right. Normally, if you wanted to get work done, you have to stop chatting in your app. Then you have to move to your workplace app and do stuff there, and then come back into your chat, into the chat room, right? But with chatbots, you can actually combine those things together. So the bot integrations allow users to communicate with them directly, privately, in a direct message, or in a room where anybody who's participating in the chat room can talk to them. Okay, so what happens is you can either add people or bots to rooms. So if you're in a room and you click on the button that says, add people or bots, you'll see a user interface that looks something like this, where you can start adding people, or you can add bots. And usually the people come first, all right? And then the bots are at the bottom, and then you can see a description of what the bots do, all right? And then once they show up just like a regular human user, okay? So that's how you would add them to a room. And what happens is if you end up building a bot that you want to expose or distribute more broadly, all right, you can list them in the G Suite Marketplace. Or you can write private bots that only work for your company because your company is a G Suite user and you want to make an internal corporate bot. But if you want to make it public, or if you're an ISV and you develop software and you sort of want to expose another way your users can reach your app, then you would just list it in the G Suite marketplace. And then as you can see, we kind of like help you track like the ratings that people give, reviews, and also a good way to kind of like tell how well your app is doing is by how many users your bot has. Okay, so and there's a whole catalog of different bots and other tools that you find in the G Suite marketplace. Now, your particular application may have authorization, all right? And so within the Hangouts Chat system, developers can actually write bots that will do the OAuth config to your app, all right? And once your users authenticate into your app, then your bot can communicate with all of those users in the room, just as if there was no security at all, but knowing that it's gone through your sign-in process so that you obviously only valid users of your software can have access to the bot that's inside a room or a direct message. All right, bots can also post notifications in an asynchronous way. All right, so for example, maybe you have a bot in a room, you're not really talking to it, nobody's talking to it, but an alert comes, and because something happened, like a customer installed your app or something like that, you can actually get those notifications in the chat room. All right, so they can be asynchronous. It doesn't have to be you type a message, the bot responds. All right, you can allow or you can build a bot that posts notifications when an event occurs. Okay, so there's no restriction. Okay. And the way you communicate with the bot is you @mention the bot name followed by some kind of command that your bot recognizes. In this particular case, a manager is trying to figure out how far along is one of his reports on the task for the week. And so he asks the bot that information, and then the bot will come back with, for this particular employee, 2 of their 5 tasks have been done. Here are the remaining 3. Otherwise, you can open the app in a browser window and actually get the full user interface instead of just seeing the results either on the web or on a mobile device. But this is a good kind of take a look-see without having to go and switch context to go to a completely different app. Okay, so this is one example. All right. So by the way, the first half of this talk is sort of like high-level overview like this. The second half of the talk, we're going to show you some code and walk through some stuff, and then talk about Salesforce integration. OK, so as I mentioned at the top, we launched to general availability. Well, depending on where you are on the planet, maybe March 1st. But if you're on the West Coast, where we're lagging, it would be February 28th on the last day. All right, but when we launched with 24, 25 public bots. All right, and so here are the logos for the companies that built integrations, and we also have one for Salesforce as well too that just happens to be not listed here. Okay, so anyway, so you can actually, when you guys enable Hangouts Chat for your domain, you'll see all the bots, including the Salesforce one. Okay, and 2 of the bots are written by Google, one for Google Drive, one for Google Calendar. So the Drive bot allows you to know when files are shared with other people, when people make comments, or when other people request access to your documents. And then similarly, the @meet bots integrates directly with Google Calendar so that you could say, hey, I want to set up a meeting with all the people in this room, and it'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so those are 2 bots. And then, of course, there's also a bot for Salesforce. So when you're adding bots, you'll see, like I said, the people that you can add to the room. And then towards the bottom, you'll see all the different bots. And there's one for Salesforce right there. Okay, and basically is able to pull up information about accounts and contacts when you request it right from inside a chat room. You don't have to go to your Salesforce account. Okay, because that's the job of the bot. The job of the bot is to go and use the Salesforce APIs to get that information and to show it in chat room. All right, so when you write bots, you can have simple text-only bots, right? It doesn't have to be very complicated. The simplest bots are text-only. So your very first one, which is your hello world, which we're going to show in a couple of slides, is probably going to be text-only because it's the fastest way to kind of like do a proof of concept to get something working. All right, so in this particular case, this user is talking to a bot, and it's asking it to do a switch in a calendar to change a meeting to Monday, and it'll look for the appropriate first times that are free for both you and the other person. All right, and then it prompts you, do you want me to go ahead with it, or do you want to cancel or whatnot? So you actually get some options. Beyond text only, you can render an interactive card. So here are some more examples of interactive cards. And the way you do a card is we provide a user interface where you can use a little bit of JSON markup, and it'll actually render that for you in the UI for the chat, whether it's in mobile or on the web. And the best part about it is that you write it one time, and it will work on Android, on iOS, and on the web. Okay? You don't have to do separate versions. You don't have to go do a Swift Objective-C version and then a Java version for Android. You don't have to do that. So that's one of the great things about the interactive cards. So in this one particular example, I have a contact card. So you can see it brings up all the relevant information. It's labeled really nicely. And there's also a button to go and open up in a larger web environment. Here's another one where you're looking up restaurants, and you can actually go to the website. You can make a call on a mobile device, or you get Google Maps to give you driving directions. And then also the similar task thing that we saw earlier. Okay, this time on mobile instead of on the web. So you can see that it looks very, very similar to the one that we showed earlier that was web-based. All right, so it has multiple tiers the way it works. It's not like standard API usage where you make a request to an API, assuming that your authentication is there, and then you get a response from the API. It's a little bit more complicated than that. The Hangouts Chat system is sort of like the middleman in between the chat room and your bot. Okay, and then responses can be synchronous or asynchronous. So the diagram is a little hard to see, so I'm going to blow it up, and we're going to focus only on the section in the middle. Because the other stuff is kind of it's extra. So the one on the top is for what happens when a bot is added to a space, whether it's a room or a direct message, and the bottom one is what happens when a bot is removed. But in any case, all of them work pretty much in the same way, which is what happens when a regular message is received by a bot. So in the diagram, a user will @mention a bot, type a message. That message will get sent to the Hangouts Chat service. Then the Hangouts Chat service will communicate to your bot. Your bot does all the work, the gears spin. It sends a response back to show the user. So it sends that back to Hangouts Chat, and then Hangouts Chat renders that into the chat room so that the user can see it. Okay, it's fairly straightforward. It's just a couple of hops out, a couple of hops back. All right, so here is your hello world. This is the Echo bot, the simplest thing where it just shows who sent the message and what was it that they typed. Okay, so in this particular case, I'm calling my test bot. I wrote testing is the message I'm sending it, and then the whole thing I get a text. The message body gets put into an event object. Once I have an event object, that gets passed to the onMessage function call if you pass it a message. And then the return value is just plain text, which is hi plus the name of the user that sent the message, followed by you sent, and then regurgitates the message that was originally sent. So this is the basic thing. Once you get this working, then you know you've got the power, and then you can do whatever you really wanted to do. Okay? So this is one example. This is an example in JavaScript, and the bot is hosted on Google Apps Script. So that's one hosting and one language option you have, but there are many, many options. Okay? For example, if you needed something a little bit more scalable, you can run it on Google App Engine, which supports Python, Java, Go, and PHP. That's another 4 different languages that you can use, plus you get free scaling. In this case, it's a little bit lower level, so you have to manually parse the JSON that you get. You have to check it's a message, and then pulling out the username and the text that they sent. It's a very similar manner to the JavaScript example. And then I write out the response as JSON, and then of course at the bottom we have the server loop, which will depending on what kind of URL is sent. We only have one. We're only handling a direct post to this app, and the execution ends up being exactly the same as the JavaScript version. A few more lines because now we have a lower level, more powerful platform. Same thing applies if you want to run it on Heroku, using Flask or whatnot as well too. Okay, and then to change gears a little bit, let's go back to AppScript and JavaScript. But here is an example of a bot that uses Google Maps, where a user types the name of the bot and then some location that they want. And then I have code that will go grab the user's name, or removes the bot's name, and then it encodes the destination so that I could actually send that to the Google Maps API. And then the Maps API will not only send me an image, which I render inside the interactive card, but also I want to create a button that they can actually open this location in Google Maps to get the full-blown experience on mobile or on the web. But at least you just take a look-see from the chat room. Okay? So that's another example of what you can do with a bot. All right. So what is that interactive card that we got to render the map? Okay, so for the same app, this was what was at the bottom. So on the previous slide, I had interactive card JSON payload, but now let's take a look at that JSON payload, which looks something like this. Okay, so you're returning one or more cards. They have sections. All right, in this particular case, I have a clickable map. All right, I have an image URL. So by the way, that means that they can click on both the link as well as the map, and it will actually open it up in the full browser, or again, web or mobile. All right, and then once my image section is done, then I have a button section, which is the one at the bottom. So basically, you piece this UI together, section by section, and then at the very end, it just takes that array, it builds it, and then it renders the whole thing for you. Okay, so that's how it's a little bit more complicated than just plain text, but it looks nicer, right? So if you want to have a better user experience, then you put in a little bit more work and you craft this JSON. But the structure is very similar no matter what your card is. So all you have to have is some code that auto-generates sections, and then you're good to go. You don't have to manually write this out every single time. Okay? All right, so as I mentioned, you can have a lot of different options as far as what languages you can create bots in, where you can host them. All right, so I showed you AppScript. That's one way. AppScript uses JavaScript. You can also do it on App Engine. So like I said, App Engine supports Python, Java, Go, PHP, and more. All right. You can also use Cloud Functions. All right, so if you're doing stuff where you want to have more closer, tighter integration with the Google Cloud Platform because you're using Google Cloud Platform APIs, then you can probably do it with Google Cloud Functions. Similarly, if you're writing mobile apps and mobile apps is your way of life and you're using the Firebase platform to do that, you can use Cloud Functions for Firebase. They're really the same product, but they have tighter integrations with either the cloud platform or for Firebase. And the syntax is almost identical. There's just a few things that are different. And if you just want to do your language, your VMs, your stack, all right, you can host it on Compute Engine or EC2 or any other public platform, Heroku, anything like that. It's fine. Very, very flexible. Because as long as Hangouts Chat can post to your bot, that's the most important part. I mean, that's how it works, right? And then similarly, we have PubSub here because there are people who are implementing bots, but the data they want to show is behind their corporate firewall. And of course, Google servers don't have the right to go through your firewall. So in that case, you can use Cloud PubSub, where everybody has a shared resource. You have kind of like a queue that Hangouts Chat writes to, and then your internal code can retrieve that data from, basically it's a producer-consumer type of thing. It's a queue, right? And PubSub can have very, very good performance. So that's just another option if the data that you're trying to display in a chat room is behind a firewall. All right, for the last bit, let's talk a little bit about Salesforce. So in addition to the public Salesforce bot that Hangouts Chat comes with, you can build your own. Okay, that's why you guys are here. That's why we have developers here at this conference. That's why we have this conference. It's not just Dreamforce, right? Okay, so one of the Salesforce engineers wrote this cool blog post that shows different ways that you can integrate with Salesforce outside of the standard bot that we already have. All right, so it has an example of using the standard request response. You send a message to a bot, the bot responds. It also shows you an example of an asynchronous bot that will post an alert to a chat room when, for example, you have a new lead that just came into your Salesforce account. So that's pretty cool. And the last one, we just followed a talk about Einstein and intent. You can actually use Einstein Intent API to kind of make your bots more conversational, so that it understands, sort of like human-type language, and then you can respond that way. So all three of these scenarios are in this particular blog post, and you can access that at that link there. Okay? And so anyway, I guess the bottom line I wanted to say is Hangouts is great, and Chat is great. But Hangouts Chat is even better because it combines the two. All right, it's the next generation team collaboration messaging platform. All right, this is a marketing bullet. All right, but the main idea is that it has a developer platform, so you can write bot integrations. And what that means is that if you have these, intelligent bots that can do lots of different things, chat rooms are no longer just for chatting. You can actually do stuff like automate things. You can query for information, and you can perform other, laborious tasks that you used to have to do manually, but you don't have to anymore. Okay, and like I said, there's many different ways of creating bots and hosting bots, whether it goes all the way from serverless down to your stack, your language, your VM, even your internal private cloud if you want. If you want to find out more, developers can go to our developer launch post there. And if you want to get started right away and take a look at some of the sample bots that we have already, as well as read the documentation, that's all at developers.google.com/hangouts. All right, and with that, thank you for coming, and you can reach out to me on Google+ or on Twitter. And if you have any questions, I'll be hanging around for a few minutes afterwards. But if there's no time or you think of something later, just scan the barcode or enter the short link, and I'll be glad to field your questions. All right? All right, thank you very much, everybody.